Well, hello. I'm just about remembering how to work this StreamYard program. It's such a while since I've used it, so I hope it all goes okay. But welcome. It's really good to see you all. Good to see you introducing yourselves as you come in. And I think it's fairly safe to say that everyone's from everywhere. So the first thing to do is, have to check as a real amateur, can you actually hear me? Have I got everything working? Can you see me? Can you hear me? All that sort of stuff. Do let me know. And as I say, really great to see you. And it's been such a long time, as I say, since I've done a live, what's it called? Live stream. I did two last year. One sort of after, I think it was the first 4,000 subscribers or something. And then around about the time when I was launching the Beanie Along, we had a live stream as well. And so, yeah, brilliant. It's great to see you. And there's a few things to chat about this evening. And especially, as you may know, I had launched a little bit of a giftaway for my 1 year podiversary or anniversary of the vlog podcast thing. And that was to enter that, you had to sort of, put a comment on my last main video. And over 500 of you did. So I have got about three winners for that. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But otherwise, I'll update you on what's happening on the knitting front, on the life front, and also keen to hear any of your questions. This is a chance to chat. I mean, it's you watching me, and I can only see your little comments. But if you have anything you want to ask, fire ahead away there in the actual comments. And I can see them all coming up in front of me in this sort of weird sort of thing. I can even do stuff like put comments on the screen. There's Jane Hancock Allen saying, yes, see you, hear you, that's good. And there's Beverly, can see us in British Columbia, Canada. And a nice congratulations from Maria. So, yeah, it's all singing, all dancing here on the Albanach. Now, I think to myself, why on earth, Andrew, do you choose to do these things on a Sunday evening? Because all I really want to do is crawl upstairs, have a cup of tea, and go to bed. Sundays, and especially on the first weekend of the month, because it's an extra special, especially busy weekend for me. And yeah, absolutely crazy. But I know that Sundays, it can be a sort of quiet day for lots of people. And also figured that if I'm doing something here at sort of 8 o'clock in the evening, some of you guys, wherever you are in America, some of you guys are in like early afternoon. Some of you are in sort of, just coming out in the morning. I've no idea what time it is in South Africa. So what time is it down there, Shani? That'd be interesting to know. And I think I saw some Canadians as well and all that sort of stuff. So great to see you. I think some of you folks from Europe as well, you're probably an hour or two ahead of us or behind us. And Hazel from Northamptonshire, probably about 200 years behind us. No, I'm joking. That was a joke. Really good to see you. Are you all in? Are you all sitting comfortably? I hope you've got a cup of tea. Hope you're knitting on something. Or I saw some of you were crocheting as well. Now, where will we start? I don't know quite where to start, other than to say, as I say, I had the 1 year podiversary subscriber thingy, watch the videos, all that sort of stuff, talking absolutely rubbish. And I thought to myself, what I would do is have a little gift away. You've been such a blessing, all of you, over the last year. I've really enjoyed being in touch with so many of you, both here on YouTube and over on the Instagram thing. And some of you have even sort of linked up with me on that Facebook thing as well. And so I thought it was about time that I had a 1 year podiversary celebration and 11,000 subscriber giftaway. So I'm just going to start with that because I think that's the most exciting thing to do. It's the most exciting thing to do, I think, anyway. So what I did to choose the winners, let's say all you had to do is stick a comment on my last main video by the 31st of January, end of play. And so what I have done is I have gone on to one of those extremely complicated things where you put the address of the video into the actual little program, and it brings you up a comment that is the winner. I've seen lots of people trying to do that sort of thing when they're actually on the live program itself, but that is not something that I am even going to try at this actual juncture. So, without further ado, are you ready for the results? Are you ready to see if you're a winner? I'll tell you in a wee minute what you've won. But the first name and suggestion and comment that came out of the little machine was this one from the Caravelle Kiwi. I think you can just about see a little picture there in that little circle of the Caravelle Kiwi. And I presume it's a she. She says, love your podcast with the visits around Arran and other areas of Scotland. I'm of Scottish ancestry myself on my mother's side. Her Nori grandmother arrived in New Zealand in 1880 with her parents and 6 brothers. I'm currently only knitting in the cool early morning because my hands get sweaty later in the day. It's a hot midsummer here. Well, thanks for all that extra detail. So Caravelle Kiwi, you are the winner of the first prize, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. And I thought I would do 2 others so that we can share the love a little bit, so we can share the love. Here's another one. And it's Susan Thompson 4202. Susan Thompson 4202 says, congratulations, Andrew. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching you in the first year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what projects 2024 brings. So congratulations, Susan Thompson 4202 as the second winner there. And because I wanted to buck the international stereotypes of Scottish people, I thought I would have 3 prizes just to show that we're not that stingy, really. And the third one was from Carolyn M9798, and she said, congratulations, you're inspiring me to knit a sweater, a jumper. Well, sorry about that, Carolyn. I do try and, encourage you on. And I always say, if I can do it, then absolutely you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And I say I'm currently working on 2 sweaters at the moment. So there you go. Those were the winners of the Podiversary giveaway. Now, let me share with you what I intend to be the prize for the first winner. And you will have to wait for it, because this book, 52 Weeks of Accessories from Lane, I think it's Lane Publishing, is not quite out yet. It doesn't come out for a few weeks yet. And so the first winner there, who was Caravelle Kiwi, will somehow get a copy of 52 Weeks of Accessories. And I'm saying somehow because I'm reckoning that Caravelle Kiwi is probably in New Zealand. So we might have to be very creative in trying to find out how we can get that first prize to you. And those other winners will have to... We'll talk about what your prize is. I've got a few ideas and some options available for you. So that was the 1-year Podiversary and 11,000 subscribers giveaway. Now, if you happen to be one of those people and you're watching, what you have to do is email me at albanachknitter@gmail.com. albanachknitter@gmail.com. And interestingly enough, that is the email address that I use for all the Albanach Knitter thingies, and some of you know that, and some of you have been in touch there, and I try my very best to get back in touch with you if you do get in touch. Sorry if I don't. So if you were one of those winners, contact me on that email address and we can talk about all the details of getting that prize to you. So huge congratulations to all those winners, and huge commiserations to all those who didn't win but commented all the same. You'll just have to go and buy your own books and stuff. So, suck it up, Buttercup. That's how it's going to be. So yeah, congratulations. Fantastic. I have to say, there's not a huge deal of update on what I have been knitting. You know exactly what I'm knitting, don't you? You know exactly what it is. I'm still working on my Dustland sweater. And I have to say, I am making progress. As I said, I've joined a knit group on the island here. They meet on a Wednesday afternoon, like between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, which is one of the worst times in the world for me. But nevertheless, I do go along. And I've been taking my Dustland sweater along to that. And so that means in spite of all the other busyness that's been going along, I actually made some progress. And if I just sort of roll it up the screen, you can see, it's getting there, and you might even be able to see me underneath like that. See, there we go. See, so I'm quite happy with that. Now, as far as how much more do I have to go? Well, I'm not going to stand up so you can see, because I'm sitting down now. There's nothing in the world is going to make me stand up. I think I've got possibly another couple of inches, one pattern repeat to go. Well, certainly while I'm sitting down, and then probably miles and miles of ribbing at the end to get the body finished, and then of course it's getting back to the Jolly Arms to do that. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that, and I have managed to get it squeezed into that little knitting group. That at the moment is the only thing that is making sure that I absolutely have time to knit on my Dustland. I think I might have mentioned this on my last episode, that what I had decided I was going to try and do, like something of a New Year's resolution kind of thing. Useless. But what I decided to do is that come 10 o'clock in the evening, I was going to stop doing all the work and all the other stuff, etc. Because we do usually sit down, Tracy and I, we usually sit down around about 10 o'clock and have a cup of tea and something to go with it before we, do the stuff, go to bed. And so I decided that I was going to use that time to knit. But of course, usually by the time I get to there, I'm tired. I don't want to be knitting. But it is usually a time where we catch up on some, usually some YouTube. I like to catch up with my YouTube people that I watch. And for some weird, strange reason, I've started watching episodes of a program which they've put on YouTube called, it's from the USA. It's an American thing. And it's called Hoarders, people who collect and amass loads of stuff. And so I watched that, and these guys come in and they sort of support all these people try to clean up their mess and all their muck and all that sort of stuff. And I was wondering, well, why am I actually watching that? And I think it's probably to alleviate myself of the guilt of all the yarn that I've got. So that program has certainly induced something in me, because what I did only a few days ago is I had a good look through some of my stash, and it just so happened that someone on the island, an artist, said that she was looking for yarn. Did anybody have any? So I just felt immediately compelled to ensure that I wasn't that bad a hoarder and get rid of some of my yarn. So that's what I absolutely did. So I've been watching that as well. And so that's what I do on an evening. And it's even inspired a little bit of a clean out here in the office now. If I turned the camera around, you would not believe that I'd been tidying in here. I've just got rid of a piece of furniture and I've been sorting things out. And it's absolute chaos. Outside this space, absolute chaos, but it'll be fine soon enough. And as you can see behind, I've got a little bit of a book thing anyway. So there we go. That's what I've been up to. Not much knitting getting done. It's been busy. And as I said on the last podcast there, I've been busy sort of sorting out my mother-in-law, who's about to move up to the island. Next week she comes. Next week she's arriving, so I'm heading down to Wales once again, and to get her car driven up here and over onto the island. So life's been busy and all that sort of stuff. Now what else have I got here to tell you? I've also been knitting on a jumper for Tracy, because she hasn't has a jumper yet. I did one for Katie. I've done one for Lucy years ago, a little sort of Christmassy jumper thing. So it really is Tracy's turn, and I made a good start. But I'm a bit behind the curve with that one. As I said in my last episode, I'm knitting this. Not the person, of course. That is Jessica McDonald, who is the designer of the project, and it's called the red's something to do with cedar. Oh, I've even forgot the name of the thing. But anyway, a Jessica McDonald pattern that I'm doing. It's a simple color work yoke, and I have made some progress with that. But you see, the pattern just stops at the top of the shoulders before you sort of split for the body. And I think once I'm past the color work yoke there, I think it will be plain sailing as far as the rest of the body is concerned. So a little bit of interest at the beginning, and then just something to be knitting on. Now I did show you this last time on the real episode, but here it is again. And again, my light in here is absolutely terrible. It hasn't grown hardly any, but as you can see, there's some nice short rows there to give the back a little bit of a rise, and I've started there on the color work, which you can't really see, but that's as far as that's got. Nothing extra special to show you from the last time. So let me see some of your comments now. Over to you. I've been telling you what I've been knitting. There's a few of you sort of popping in from all sorts of places. Somerset. Oh, I wonder whereabouts in Somerset you are. We used to live in Bristol back in the day, and used to enjoy little forays down into Somerset. And there's Darren saying hello from Washington State. I actually have no idea where that is. I think it's near. Is it near New York? Is Washington State? No. I don't know. You can enlighten me. I have no idea what it is. I'm Scottish. I know nothing. And what's Anthony saying? He's been knitting for 12 months and he has a good stash of wool. He doesn't need to buy any more until his 223rd birthday. Brother, I can entirely identify with that, unless, of course, you're in your husband's or your partner's email handle. And in Chris' case, I'm sorry for misgendering you. But there we are. Eleanor's saying she's got 4 inches left of ribbing on her sweater. Which of us will get to the bottom first? Now, Eleanor, are you doing the Dustland? Are you one of these people that's been telling me that you're doing the Dustland? Sometimes when you're on this YouTube thingamabob and you say you're going to do something, you sometimes half wonder if you're committing people to some terrible thing when you decide to do a project, because when you start it, you never quite know what it's going to turn out like, how it's going to feel when you're actually knitting it. And I'm just aware that I can be leading lemmings off the side of a mountain cliff here. It could be as bad as that. But you're knitting the Devon sweater. Beverly's working on a Dustland sweater for her husband's birthday. How's that going, Beverly? How far are you on with it? And there's a Judith there. She's finishing off a sleeve and casting off something, a test knit. So that'll be under wraps, I guess, Judith. Yeah, fantastic. Let's just have a wee look to see who's coming on. There's a Sandra there. Now, Sandra McManus. Oh, I know who Sandra McManus is. Sandra McManus has been in touch with me a fair bit recently. She's just finishing a toe on a colour work sock. Sandra is also an author, and she's written I think it's the same Sandra, I hope it is. She's written a devotional book, a Christian devotional book, and she sent me a copy. So I'll be having a wee look at that, Sandra, if indeed that is the same individual. Now, colourwork socks. Let's just talk about colourwork socks, can we? My experience, I have never worn sort of hand knitted colourwork socks, because in my head, I'm thinking of the experience of actually wearing socks, and when I've got some sort of factory made socks that have sometimes some little patterns and stuff on, and I think there's nothing worse than putting your foot inside a sock and then for your toes to be caught up in all sorts of bits and bobs. And so in my mind, prove me wrong, I think colourwork socks would actually take me some sort of convincing to actually get on with it. So if I was to knit some colourwork socks, do you have a simple pattern that you can recommend? Now, recognising, of course, that I think most of the colourwork socks that I've seen tend to have all their colourwork up at the top, up by the rib, sometimes down as far as the ankle, perhaps. I think I've even seen some that go down over the sort of foot part. I don't know. Maybe I have. So, and again, stick down there in the comments some of your tips. You know, how do you keep those? How do you keep those floats, from getting stuck up in your toes? How do you keep the fabric stretchy enough? Because that's the other thing about color work. It doesn't always give the same amount of stretch. So, if you get any top tips, send them down there. Or if you connect with me in any other way, please let me know over there. Now, on that topic, if you don't already connect with me somehow on Instagram, I'm over there and at Albanach Knitter. It's as simple as that. Just search for Albanach Knitter, and surely you'll find me there. I really like the Instagram part because with the YouTube thing, a lot of it's just me sitting talking to you, and you comment, and that's fine. But there's a nice thing about the whole Instagram thing if you're on it, because you get a little bit of chance to chat back and forwards, to comment back and forwards, and also I get a chance to see some of your stuff as well. So that's where I am on Instagram. I also have a sort of page on Facebook, not my private, what's it's and bits and bobs, but on Facebook, and you can search for Albanach Knitter on there, and again, surely you will find me. Now, just getting back to see your comments there. Hazel Donner making the suggestion, like Andrew, just do the color work on a larger needle. Of course. So that's a great tip there, Hazel. Thank you very much. I presume that's what you do because you're obviously a person of great wisdom, and all the rest. Now, did I see a question coming up there? No, that wasn't the question. Somebody asked me a question. The thing about this program is that because you're commenting, all the questions go really, really fast, and so I saw a question. Let me see if I can find it. It was someone who put a Canadian flag on the end of it. Oh, there it was. Was that it? Brenda Escribano. That sounds quite exotic. From Canada. Ooh, very exotic from Canada. Well, Brenda, apologies for boring absolutely everyone else who may actually have heard this story. How long have I been knitting, and who taught you? There's two answers to that, really, because when I was a wee boy, I must have been about 7 or 8 or something like that, my grandmother taught me how to knit. And when I say she taught me how to knit, she showed me the basics, but wouldn't trust me with any of her nice needles or any of her nice wool. So I have strong memories of sitting in the back garden on a blanket, with two twigs, two twigs from a nearby tree, and a ball of string, and that was my first knitting project. And it was like 10 stitches along, and I was just supposed to go back and forward for a wee bit. It never came to anything, but I think from that, etched in my brain was my granny's mantra: in, over, through, and off. The whole sort of thing. We cast the yarn here in the UK. That's how my granny taught me, so that's what I do. So that's when I first remember learning to knit, and so I give all the credits to my granny. But I think second time round, I learned to knit. I've been knitting now since about 2014, so it'll be 10 years this year. And my daughter Katie, who's probably watching there somewhere, hi Katie. She came home from Brownies one night. That's a little girls group. You do crafts and badges and all that sort of thing. She came home having done some knitting at Brownies. The church ladies had come in and taught them how to knit. She brought her knitting home and asked her mum, could she help with the knitting? And my wife Tracy said no, she can't because she couldn't knit. Why don't you ask her dad? Which was like, oh, can dad really knit? Well, I couldn't really, but I could remember the basics. So that's where it started. And it just so happened that was a time of life where I really needed to have something that was nice and chill out. So I started to go to good old YouTube. Where would we be without YouTube? And so I started to learn all the basics of knitting and purling and making one left and making one right and casting on and casting off, etc. Pretty much all from YouTube. So I hope that answers that. Sandra's asking another question. Will you be doing another beanie along? Well, Sandra, I'm sort of thinking about it. I'm seriously thinking about doing something. And for those of you who don't know what on earth we're talking about, sorry, I'll come back to that, Donna. Those who don't know what I'm talking about, last summer, from the end of June into the end of July, I think it was, I sent out a little challenge to knit some beanies, and these beanies were to go to charities that are supporting the homeless, elderly, etc., etc., etc. And so there was a great response here in the UK. I had about 300 or so beanie hats that were sent to me, not just the pattern that I'd sent out, but all your own patterns as well. And I've no real idea of how things went in the States or Canada or Australia or whatever. But I did have some lovely messages from some of you telling me that your beanies were going to shelters and various things. Now, the reason I'm to say all that, because that's what we did, and that worked well. And certainly here in the UK, I ended up taking my hats, as you probably saw in one of the videos, I think back in October, November. I took them to a project that works with refugees coming to Scotland here, and so we're very pleased to take the hats, because if you're coming from somewhere that's got a bit of heat and you're coming to Scotland during the winter, you're going to need something for your head. So that's what I was doing. So the reason why I'm hesitant to do hats again this year is because you weirdly, not all charities want knitted stuff and all that sort of thing, but I'm keen to try and do something of a charity project at some time. Now, there was a question from Donna. Let me see if I can find the question from Donna, because it's moved. Donna, if you're there and you can help me at all, stick that question right back in there, because I've absolutely lost it. Let me see if there's any other questions. Now, Robin is saying, going back to the question of socks, I think socks in general, they can be very addictive. And yeah, I find that I always like to have at least one pair of socks. Now, there was a question. I found it, Donna. I found it. And she says, I like to do a Gansey. Any suggestions for a pattern? No, no, I haven't seen any. I'm sure they're out there. I know that some people. I have no idea of what the challenges are with Ravelry. I've used it. I'm not particularly fussed by it, but I know for a fact there are some. There are some Gansey patterns on there. What I suggested when we did the little Gansey motif thing way back in March last year is I pointed you towards Di Gilpin's Gansey source book. And what basically that is, Di Gilpin, who's a knitting designer that some of you may have heard of, she does her own yarns as well as patterns and designs. She's basically worked with another colleague whose name I can't remember, and she's gone around all the fishing ports in the UK and collected all the little individual motifs that are often put in to a traditional Gansey, and that was the real interest for me. She does have that book. Let me see if I can find it. It's just up here. He says, there it is. There it is. Bear with. Hope you're not seeing anything terrible there. That's Di Gilpin's knitting Gansey knitting source book, and as you can see on the front, there is this this pattern inside for this yellow Gansey, which has Gansey patterns along the front, but it's not what you would call a traditional Gansey. They have quite a unique construction. Hazel is asking what a Gansey is. Hazel, a Gansey is a traditional, mainly fisherman's jumper. So every fisherman from these waters going out to sea, they would have a jumper that was knitted by their probably by their nearest and dearest, or at least by the community. Let me see if I can find one to show you in this book. And basically, the jumper, the Gansey, the sweater, had particular patterns on it, which could sort of identify individuals, where they came from by all the different patterns that were on their jumper. So if I can kind of show you that right really badly, you can see that all these sort of patterns here with all sorts of things. So if you don't know what a Ganzi is, it's a whole world of absolute intrigue. Some lovely patterns, and also back last year, back in March, maybe some of you weren't around then, when we did the Ganzi motif knit along. What I encouraged people to do was to look at books like Di Gilpin's Ganzi Knitting Source Book and just make something with Ganzi patterns. Now, this book has some lovely Ganzi socks, which is basically knits and purls to make the pattern, etc., etc., etc. And so look on my Instagram, or even sort of scroll back a few videos here on YouTube, and you'll see some of the stuff that we did there. Nina is saying that there's a very good book by Beth Brown Reinsel. I haven't seen that book, Nina. I presume it's about Ganzis. So yeah, so there obviously are patterns out there, yeah. So yeah, look it up. Gansey. Gansey. Look at it's a great tradition. Alison's asking, do I recommend the source book? I absolutely do. I don't think I'm necessarily the best at being incredibly freestyle and extra creative with my knitting. I tend to be pretty much a pattern guy. I think I'm at the stage where even 10 years in, I'm not even sure I would be that confident in making many sort of moderations or alterations to a knitting pattern. I'm the kind of person that even when I know that something's not going to fit me, I'll keep on going to the end with no idea how to fix it. I think with the source book, if you had a basic pattern of a Ganzi and the construction of it, you could very easily integrate all the different kind of patterns into the Ganzi to make up something. Now, I do know, and I will put the details in the description of this video once it's up. I do know that there was a chap up in Caithness in Scotland, I think Caithness, who was particularly prolific with the history of Ganzis, keeping patterns and examples of Ganzis, etc. And I think his online website, there are probably some patterns to the traditional construction. From what I remember, the body and the sleeves and the bottom part of the cuffs were all knitted separately. There's lots of uses of gussets so that the gussets can be taken out and sort of adapted, and all the bits of the body that something will wear out. If you're a fisherman out there in the sea doing all this stuff, bits of your jumper, your Ganzi are going to get worn out. So all of these garments were created in little pieces, so you could replace the underarm gussets, you could replace the neck gussets to replenish it. You could knit back to certain points in the sleeve and re-knit the sleeves again. Very practical garments. So I have a sense that the traditional Ganzi is a fairly blocky sort of standard pattern to do. The creativity comes with all those different patterns. And as far as that's concerned, the source book is absolutely great, because if I show you a little bit, there's some patterns in the back, but there's just pages and pages. See these little blocks here? Just pages and pages of all the different block designs, different patterns from all over the place. Anyway, we're away back to Ganzis. It's like, this thing keeps on turning around. I might escape some of these things at some point. So there we are. Knitting Ganzis. I thoroughly recommend it. I might try and do it one of these days. Now there's certainly quite a number of people in the UK, yarn producers in the UK and here in Scotland, who produce yarn especially for the knitting of Ganzis, because what you want with a Ganzi is you want a good solid fibre to be created, because that thing is going to be keeping out wet and cold and all sorts of things traditionally, of course. So there's folks that produce wool that's specifically made for Ganzis, and they're usually made on smaller needles, I think, for the wool, so that you get that really tight that really tight thing to keep the wind out. So Beverly's saying Beth Brown Reinsel wrote the book on Ganses with patterns. So that's absolutely fantastic. There's Moira. Hello, Moira. It's good to see you. She's saying she's working on toddler jumpers for birthday presents in 2 weeks' time. And I think I saw someone just say, it was Caroline, there she is. She's saying, when I came to retreat at John O'Groats, that sounds very nice, Caroline, we brought lots of little hats for a special baby care unit. Hospitals are always asking for them. Just a thought. And that is an absolutely great thought, Caroline. And so yeah, there'll be some sort of charity knit along to get back to that after the sort of going down the tunnel of Ganses. There'll be some sort of knit along that I would like to encourage. The other thing that I've seen people knit, I don't know if she's here, Catherine. I know that she knits what they call, it's a strange name, but they're called twiddle muffs. Twiddle muffs. I think that's what they're called. And it's like it's like a muff. It's like a circular thing, and you can put both hands in. Traditionally, it would be something to keep your hands in when you are out in the winter, cold, snow. Keep your hands warm, like a pocket. But there's a thing here, especially in the UK, where people are encouraged to knit these muffs, but to put all sorts of interesting buttons and zips and pom-poms and twiddly bits and different kinds of yarn, because what they do with these things is they gift them to folks who are in care homes who are struggling with dementia. The propensity in their minds and with their hand is to do something with their hands, and so these twiddle muffs, they can put their hands in, or they can be sort of playing with all the things, and it helps to decrease anxiety and distress if they have something to do there. Okay, next question. Someone, Verena Mayer, is asking, do children learn to knit in school? I don't think that it's that common these days that children would learn to knit in school, not now. However, it's not that long where that would have been the case. I've met lots of folks who are in their sort of 50s, 60s, who remember being taught how to make to knit socks at school, and so maybe as far back as that, maybe 40, 50, I don't know, those sorts of years ago, that was still very much the case. But I don't know if there's that much going on in terms of that at school. I mean, interestingly, my daughter's teacher did get in touch. I mean, it didn't come to anything. My daughter's teacher did get in touch from primary school and say, would you like to come and offer some knitting classes to the children? And I said, of course I would. It didn't come to anything. Lots of different reasons for that. But no, I don't think it happens in school, sadly. However, I remember, I think it was probably during some of the lockdowns. There was some of the years when the Shetland Wool Week, I don't know if you've heard of Shetland Wool Week, Shetland in the very far north of Scotland, I mean miles away from here. They have their Wool Week, and there was a little feature video that they were showing there about a group that they called the Peary Knitters. The Peary Knitters, and so Peary is a word in Shetlandic. I'm just trying to spell it on here for you. There we go. Peary knitters. Peary is a word for small, so young knitters, basically. And basically, because of all the wonderful knitting talent that there is still in Shetland, especially with Fair Isle and all that sort of stuff, they really want to pass on that heritage down through the years. And knitting in places like Shetland and the Fair Isle and those sorts of places have gone from being things which people did out of necessity as work, and so didn't quite carry the same sort of joy that you and I might have about our knitting, especially about our colour work or whatever. It was pretty much a business. This is what you had to do to survive at certain times of the year. And so a lot of folks would have their aunties and their grandmothers and even their mothers sitting there knitting these tremendous colour work yokes. And then those yokes would later be taken away, and by machine, the rest of the bodies would be made. And that's how they did it. It was about actually cottage industry and making money. And in that way, some of those skills, because it was a survival issue, some of those skills would be passed on down the chain of grandchildren and children, so that they could continue that on. And I think some of the Shetland knitters were recognizing that that wasn't quite happening in the same way that it used to. And so there's, say, some of these fantastic knitters up in Shetland involved in the period knitters, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I would love to see more children knitting, especially my own children. Because my daughter, who started to learn to knit, cast it aside. Obviously became too cool to knit and left it to her old dad. But there you go. Never mind. And Caroline's saying that she's saying that Steiner schools do still teach it. There's a few in Britain, not many, and they do teach knitting. I can very well believe that. For those of you I don't know a huge amount about Steiner schools, but I think they mainly have a sort of philosophy of education where they encourage the children to learn through play and exploration and creativity, etc., etc., etc. So it is very sad. And Caroline also just sort of skipping about all over the place, saying twiddly myths are easy to knit. She's made them in the past. Great fun to think about. And when it comes to adding little extras, and absolutely right, Caroline, I think that is one place where you could be really creative. And I say Catherine Mack something, who probably isn't watching at the moment. If you are, Catherine, do say hello. She sent me an example of one of her twiddle muffs, and I have no idea what it is. It's in this room somewhere. I wish I could show you it. But she did a fantastic one. It was a little Scottish flavour. It had a little thistle on it, and it had lots of little different textured things and stuff. So I'll get back to you on this sort of knit along thing. Now, I'm just looking along here to see if I've missed any questions. And hello to everyone who's joined since I've started, waffling along. I don't see anything there. Here's Caroline again. Come on, Caroline. This is your night. She says, when you've been knitting in public, people here in Somerset have said that they learned to knit at school, who are mostly in their 70s. Some say they loved it, and others were completely put off. I can definitely identify that with that, Caroline. I can think of some women that I've had conversations with who were entirely put off knitting because they had the trauma of having to do it at school. Now, I imagine that when people had to do this at school, it was probably at the point of torture or at the end of a cane. You'll knit this or else. So I think that probably put people off, not just knitting, but probably education in general. So let me have a look and see what else I was planning to say. Now, here we are. Now, I wanted to highlight, somebody asked me on Instagram, I think, a couple of questions. Planning to come to Scotland or visit Scotland at some point. Is there a way that she can organise it to meet with any particular yarn festivals? Now, I think there's maybe lots of small yarn festivals around, but these two here that I've put on the screen are by far some of the most prolific, popular ones, I think, that are around at the moment. So the Scottish Yarn Producers Showcase, which I did a video from last year, it's probably episode 5 or 6 or something. I took you up there to show you around. That's a great event that happens in March. If you look on good old Google and Google Scottish Yarn Producers Showcase, you'll find the dates for that in March. And then in September, there's a larger event called the Scottish Yarn Festival. And that has got much more sort of space, much more vendors, a few other events on there. I really liked the Yarn Producers Showcase because here was an opportunity to see people who are creating yarn in Scotland, and just an opportunity to really boost the industry in Scotland. So that's in March, and then there's the bigger festival down there in September. So if you're coming to those, fantastic. And if you are thinking about coming to those, as I've mentioned before, we have tried to plan our Sannox Centre Sannox Stitches Knitting Retreat in close proximity to those Scottish yarn festivals in terms of dates. So you've got the possibility of coming along to the yarn festivals thereabouts, and also sort of coming along to Sannox and taking part in our knitting retreat. If you want more information about those, head off to sannox.org. We've got a few people booked in for March. We've got some booked in for September, but we definitely still have some space. Somebody else was asking, do I know of any good yarn shops in Scotland? Similarly, when people are making a plan to come and visit Scotland. And my honest response to that has to be to say I'm not really sure, because I've been here now in Scotland. Well, I've been here on the Isle of Arran for the last year and a half, and I haven't had a huge amount of opportunity to go onto mainland Scotland and have a good look at the yarn, because when I was in Scotland last, I wasn't knitting, wasn't on my horizon. However, I have been to the shop that's called the Yarn Cake. I think it's in Glasgow, in the west end of Glasgow, in Partick somewhere. Nice little shop there. You can go in there, you can have a nice cup of tea. Lovely staff. They've got lots of little accessories and things. They've got a good stock of things like Jameson and Smith, and lots of lovely 100% natural fibers. And that's what I mean by yarn shops, people that will sell that kind of stuff. Because there's loads of places like in markets and small shops, etc., that will sell acrylic yarns and sort of, what's the word, not corporate yarns. I've had this trouble before, but mass-produced yarns. But if you want something special, somewhere like the Yarn Cake. Now, there is somewhere in Edinburgh. I can't remember right now. I'll come back to that. Somebody might help me here, because you might have been. Also in Glasgow, there's a place I'm told called the School of Yarn. I think it's called the School of Yarn. I don't know if it's necessarily somewhere that you can just pop in. I read that perhaps you have to make an appointment to go. But the person who runs that, they dye lots of their own yarn, and they have lots of interesting commercial, that's the word, Eleanor, thank you very much. So the School of Yarn have lots of extra, they have lots of stuff that they dye themselves, and they will even arrange, if you go there and you explain to them the kind of project or sort of yarn that you're looking for, they'll even dye you up something to your requirements at not a lot of extra cash. So if you're in Glasgow, I think that's definitely worth looking up. Edinburgh, see, there are a few. Now, I had an absolute disaster of a time trying to visit yarn shops in Edinburgh. You might remember, if you watch my channel, I went to Northumberland in October, November last year. On the way back from there, in spite of the fact that it was a horrendous storm, I decided I would try and stop over in Edinburgh and go to some of these yarn shops. I tried, but there was some yarn shops that I got to, and there was absolutely nowhere to park. I was driving back from a long way away, so I had the car, and I didn't have time to park and ride into the city and all that sort of stuff, because I was heading for a ferry, all that sort of stuff. But I couldn't park outside these places, and some of the ones I went to were closed, and I cannot remember the name of them. But what I will do again is down in the comments there, I will try and give you, yes, Ginger Twist, Linda's saying, Ginger Twist in Edinburgh. That's one of the ones that I tried to go to, Linda. I just could not get parked anywhere near, several blocks in the pouring rain. It just wasn't going to happen. So that's the one I tried to go to. I think they've recently moved to a larger premises, which is really good. Obviously, they're doing well. I think it was a Ginger Twist. There's another one that's close to the centre of Edinburgh, and then there's another place in Edinburgh near an area called the Meadows, which is another place. So what I'll do is, when this video is finished, I will put a little comment in the box with some of the yarn places that I know. Also, not very far from Scotland at all, Berwick upon Tweed, which is again where I went to in my last main episode before this year's. I went to the shop of Jenny, and she does some absolutely fantastic yarn there. So there we are. Let me just have a wee look, see what other comments have come in. Robin is suggesting Kathy's Creations. I'm not sure I've heard of that one. Oh no, I have. That was another one that I tried to go to. I think that's the one that's in a sort of basement building just off. You can I think you can almost see Edinburgh Castle from there. I tried to go there, but again, I just didn't have the right mode of transport. Yeah, so I think I saw someone saying, "What is my favourite yarn to work with?" That was Brenda again. Hello, Brenda. Thank you for the question. Um, I don't know if if I can really say I've got a favorite kind of yarn, because I'm still relatively new to the whole thing, and I'm really just branching out from just sort of basic stuff to some stuff that's a bit more adventurous. So no, I just can't answer that. When I have an answer to that, I will be sure to give it to you. Now here's Jen. Everyone say hello to Jen. And she's asking how Heidi and the Sonics team are doing. Any fun activities happening there in the winter, or are things pretty quiet? So Jen was one of the lovely people who came all the way from, I think was it Wisconsin? Were you from Wisconsin or somewhere? I probably got that really wrong, and now you're really offended, and you'll never talk to me again. But Jenny came over and spent some time with us. Yeah, we're all doing okay, Jen. We're back. Sanix is in a constant. Sanix Christian Centre, which is the retreat centre where I work, is in a constant state of development. We have just started building some extra storage sheds because we recently had a £500,000 donation towards some building work. So we're currently doing a lot of moving stuff around so that we can do a really exciting next part of our building project there to develop the centre, to create more space for people coming on retreat, but also rooms that we can use. And she's from Minnesota. I'm sorry, Jen. I knew somebody was from Wisconsin. I can't remember who that was, but I knew you were sort of there somewhere. And I remember you telling me how they sort of how they fit together. So yeah, so everyone at Science is doing fine. Everyone in the Isle of Arran is doing absolutely wonderful. Here we are in the middle of one of the wettest, windiest, darkest winters that I can remember in the last 30 years. Having moved back up to Scotland, back to my home county again after many years away. You do just forget how wet and windy it actually gets here. I mean, all the way through this winter, pretty much from that storm I was talking about at the back end of October, we have pretty much had storm after storm after storm. These storms come through for 2 or 3 days with all their wind and rain, and then we might get one nice sunny day, one nice crisp winter's day, and then before you know it, you're back to wind and rain again. And Caroline, I'm going to call you talkative Caroline. Caroline's asking, did I get my Christmas meal in the midst of the storm? Well, I probably mentioned that on one of my videos. It was touch and go. It was touch and go. There were serious concerns for the turkey because we had, I don't know if it was a mistake, but we had chosen to you don't book a turkey, to order our turkey from a butcher's on the mainland, McDowell's, and not just the fact that that's my family name, it has nothing to do with it, but they're a good butcher and they deliver to the island and they're quite reasonable. So we had booked our blessed turkey to come from the mainland, and on that week the ferries were totally absolutely off. They were just off, and so the troops there did tremendously well in getting our food over. So we did have a very nice turkey and all the trimmings to eat at Christmas time. So very thankful for that. Now here's Sandra coming in. Let's hear from Sandra again. She's saying that Fan Room Soccer by Ninja Chickens, that's a fantastic name, is a very simple free pattern for colorwork socks in DK weight yarn. So it works out really quickly, and she's just finishing the toe. That sounds really interesting, Sandra. That's another thing that I've been thinking about in terms of socks. All the socks that I have knit pretty exclusively have been knit with sock yarn. I mean, sock yarn socks. And I've always wondered how DK socks would do. And I'll tell you my thinking, because I've bored you before with my problems with my feet, but not in detail, because who needs that? But anyway, I have sensitive feet, and wearing wool on my feet is just, it's really difficult. So I was wondering if, just for kicking about the house, if I could use some just, sort of soft acrylic stuff or some other softer fiber or something, just for kicking about the house to keep my tootsies warm, but in DK, so that they're nice and warm, and I don't have to wear, so that's what I was thinking. So if you've got any experience with DK socks, are they any good? Are they too chunky, or are they perfectly wearable? Can you wear them outside with your with your shoes and your boots and stuff? Let me know. Okay, let's have a wee check and see what you're saying there. Now let's see on my little list of things what I still had planned to say. Now, if you watched my recent last main episode, you will have heard of the Victoria Methodist Lent knit along. Now, the Victoria Methodist Church, I don't know if it's a Methodist circuit or just one church, can't remember, but they're based in Bristol, down south of England, where my middle daughter was born. We have a Bristolian in the house. And that church are doing a sort of, from the 14th of February, which is Ash Wednesday, as well as being Valentine's Day. And that's when they are starting their knit along. And what happens is, every week, when you sign up for free, onto the email list, you will get a list of pattern instructions to knit a mystery project, which I think this year is some sort of shawl type thing, either just a regular shawl blanket thing, or what they call the sort of prayer shawl or whatever. And it'll have some patterns using knits and pearls, a little bit like the Gansey style motifs like you would see in Di Gilpin's Gansey notebook thingy. And so that will come out, I think, once a week from Ash Wednesday. And as well as the patterns for the knitting, there's also some little devotions during the season of Lent, of course, leading up to Easter. And the reason that I got involved with this, you'll have heard me mention many times in the last year, my friend Meg, who has her knitting shop down in Bristol. Well, she connected me with the folks down there at Victoria Methodist. And this year, the devotions that are in the email from Ash Wednesday through to the first Saturday of Lent have been written by yours truly. So you'll have a wee chance to, read along with that if you're interested in that. But great. I mean, these folks started to do this. I think this is maybe the third year running. They've also done an Advent sort of knit along, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's just the whole purpose of bringing people together through knitting. I think they have maybe opportunities in Bristol to meet up and do stuff. And in fact, I noticed that they were suggesting one knit up on their Facebook group, which is where everyone gathers, suggesting, someone said, can anyone make it to in Bristol at this time on a Tuesday or something? And then lots of people went on and said, well, I would love to, but I'm from Canada, or I'm from the States, or all that sort of stuff. And I'm guessing that is some of you. So if you're taking part in that, I hope you have a great time. I don't have the time to have a look. Oh, there's Lynn. I want to highlight Lynn. There she is. Lynn Lloyd-Jones is the very lady who is part of running this knit along. It's good to see you there, Lynn. And it's so good to be able to highlight the knit along. It's a great idea, absolutely great idea. And I know that many people will enjoy it, and too kind. So fantastic. And she said all knitters are welcome to join. So please do have a go and get in touch with Lynn. I think if you want to find out more about that, there's a Facebook page. I think I've put that in the comments of my last main episode. So you can go and find that there. And maybe Lynn, while she's there, maybe she could, tell us what the exact name of that Facebook group is, so that you can all find it. So yeah, fantastic. That I wanted to mention that again, because you've still got a wee while to go. before that comes up. And that really, well, that's all that was on my list there to say, other than the fact and say I'm on Instagram, Albanach Knitter. So if you want to go and find me over there, I share a little bit about knitting progress when I can, as well as, life in general on the island. And if you want to find me on the old Facebook, I've had a few requests that have come in even while I've been talking. And if you want to find me over in Ko-fi, you can find me over there again, Albanach Knitter as well. Now, I'm just going to have one. Okay, there's Lynn saying it's the Victoria Methodist Bristol knit-alongs. You got it? Victoria Methodist Bristol knit-alongs over there on Facebook, and you can get all the detail there. Now, Moira is saying, Moira's another one of our friends who's been to Sanix for one of our knitting retreats. Good to see you, Moira. And you're recommending Jinty and Ba. And that's in Dunoon. That's on the mainland, not too far from here, but it involves lots of driving and several ferries to get there. So that looks like a shop. Thank you for recommending that, Moira. And I guess some of these people you might be able to find online. Some of you are saying you're leaving. Well, that's good because I'm just about ready to leave too. It's 9 o'clock here after a very busy day. And I just wanted to pop on and mainly to say hello, but also to announce the winners of the Podiversary GiftAway thing and 11,000 subscribers. And just a reminder that the first prize winner was Caravel Kiwi. So if you're watching this, please do get in touch with me and I'll arrange to get your prize to you. And the first prize is the not yet published 52 weeks of accessories, and we'll arrange to get that to you. The second two winners who will receive the mystery prizes are Susan Thompson 4202 and then Carolyn M 9798. So huge congratulations to you as well. So thank you so much for joining me on this little live video. I am now entirely out of words. I think I've used up my whole quota of words for the rest of the week. I haven't shut up all the weekend, and now I've just rattled on to you for a whole 1 hour and 5 minutes or something like that. Great to see you all, especially great to see those that I've met in person who've come to visit us in Arran. All of you, you're all very welcome. Come and visit us. Come for the organised knitting retreats, or come and just stay. We've got beds at Sanix. We can put you up. We can show you around the island. All that stuff. Do come and visit. In terms of future episodes, I see I had this in the diary, but at the moment I have nothing else planned. You're going to be at least into March before we've got a main episode coming out, because the rest of the February is just absolutely busy. I see down in Wales collecting the mother-in-law. Also have a week-long men's retreat up at Sanix, and then all sorts of meetings and stuff in the last week of February. So no episodes on the horizon until into early March. I think, though, I might be able to record you a little extra stitch, just me and the knitting, and we'll catch up probably some point towards the back end of February. But thank you for joining me from all over the world. I hope you have a good rest of the day, wherever you are, or a good night's sleep if you're on this side of the water. Marshall Leven Drasta, Bianach Jegut. Goodbye, take care, God bless. See you again sometime soon. I have to figure out how to try and get out of this thing now, don't I? Oh, bear with.